Hi there, this is James Tripp. This is a video for Hypnosis Without Trance. It's going out via Chaos Wave on YouTube. And if you're a subscriber to Chaos Wave on YouTube, you will know that it's been a little while since I put a video out. I've been traveling the globe. I've been running trainings in different areas. I've taken on a whole bunch of extra work, extra client work, working with people with post-traumatic stress. Frankly, of late, I have bitten off somewhat more than I can chew, so I haven't been giving the usual level of video content that I would like to via the channel. So I'm refocusing now. This is my first video of several, and I'm going to start off just teaching something which I've never taught until very recently. I taught this in Brazil, in fact, but until then I never taught this in the context of hypnosis. But it's a useful little model which will help to sharpen you up in terms of looking in the right direction with what you are doing with your hypnotic communications. So what I'm about to share here is going to be useful for you whether you're interested in formal hypnosis, sitting down with people, just fun stuff, street hypnosis. It's going to be useful for you if you do change work, but it's also going to be useful for you if you're interested in the subtler end of hypnosis, the conversational hypnosis end. So I'm going to share a model here with you. Before I do, I want to say, as you probably already know, Hypnosis Without Trance is a non-state model of hypnosis. It is a non-state approach to hypnosis. So we're not looking at a particular special state. There isn't any evidence really to support this, and there's a lot of evidence that suggests this isn't so, which isn't to say we're not shifting states. But it's a non-state approach which enables you to look at hypnosis in terms of process, what it is we are doing as hypnotists, and what it is we are leading our clients, the people we work with, to do in terms of how they move their minds, how they shift their cognitive functions in order to create the experiences, the shifts that we're looking to create. So this is a kind of a real model where we can focus in on process and focus in on making wise and intelligent decisions in how we manage and steer that process. So this model I want to share with you here is going to assist you with connecting to some vital ideas in terms of doing what we've just been talking about. So this is a model. It's a psychological model, if you like, a simple one, based upon the classic four elements from Greek classic thought. So what we have is we have the four elements, which are fire, we have water, which I'll put over here, we have air, which I'll put over here, make sure I'm not in the line of sight, and we have earth down here. These are the classic four elements. Now, of course, we live in a modern world, and we know that the world, that everything around us isn't built from these four elements. But what I'm going to suggest here is rather than taking a literalist interpretation, if you think about the origin of this, it would have come from the place of looking at the world through subjectivity. So we can ascribe certain qualities to this that correspond with something of human subjective experience, human consciousness, what we do with our minds, how we render up our realities, what we pay attention to. Our focus creates our engagement with life, which creates, it creates our experience and our engagement with life. This creates the results that we get. I talked about this in the last video I did. So I want to look at what these mean in terms of human experience. These are symbols that we can use for different ways of human beings engaging with the world. So first of all, let's start with Earth. So Earth is representative here of experience of the material world, right? I have an experience right now, you have an experience, you're watching this video, there's a whiteboard here, there's a board rubber, there's me speaking, there's your experience of all of these things that are happening in the material world. So Earth here represents, I did have a different color pen around here, but oh, here it is in my back pocket. Earth here represents the material world. Now really in our material world, really what we're talking about here is not necessarily the material world as it is, but the material world as we experience it. Because we experience the material world 100% through our senses, we make it up to be a certain way. So how we experience the material world is not how it is. I mean, you know, this looks like a static object, but inside of it, we could look at it in terms of a dance of subatomic particles. We don't experience that as we look at it. We experience it in the way that we experience it. And there's whole other layers of meaning that we add to that. But Earth here represents material world. And in terms of what we're doing hypnotically, how we experience the material world. I'm going to shift over to air over here next. There's no reason to do these in this particular order. But air represents here logic, reason, rational thinking. Okay, so I'm gonna call it the logical mind. So this is reasoning. This is breaking things down analytically. So logical mind, analysis. Okay, and I'll just tip this off ahead of time here. If you're familiar with Dave Ellman's concept of the critical faculty, Ellman talked about hypnosis as being about bypassing the critical faculty. So here we also are looking at the critical faculty. So we get this, what you might colloquially refer to as sort of left brain thinking, although that's not a perfect model. Water over here, let's duck across to water. Water is the realm basically of the emotional. Okay, this is kind of emotional stuff, emotional feeling stuff, really kind of having this sort of felt feeling, felt sense, so it's emotional. And I'm going to put felt sense in here as well. Now again, as I'm showing you this is obviously a massive simplification. This is a model. This is not the reality of how things are. So there isn't sort of a clear distinction between all of these necessarily. There are threads that interweave. So I'm going to put felt sense in there as well, emotional and felt sense. Incidentally, emotional would be here, sensational would be here. A sensation like the sensation of the coolness of the whiteboard on my fingers would be down here, or the sensation of wind blowing would be down here, or an internal sensation would be in here as well. It doesn't have to be a sensation of the outside, so an internal sensation would be here, which is different from an emotion, so there's a distinction there. So the last point in this model is fire, and this is particularly interesting. Fire is to do with basically inspiration and imagination. Inspiration and creative imagination and all of this kind of thing we've got up here in terms of fire. Now if you look at these from a cognitive perspective, these are all things that we can do in our mind. If you've ever become deeply absorbed in imagination, and especially if it's ever fired up your inspiration, you felt inspired by a vision. Oh yeah, that's something else I want to put up here, vision. You know, people talk about having vision. This is the realm of fire up here. If you've ever experienced, being caught up in a vision, an idea, an imagination, it feels wonderful. It creates a sense of what I often refer to colloquially as a high vibration state, often comes from this place, from the place of fire. It can also, incidentally, drive, there's a shadow side to everything. So this can also drive defeat, senses of, it can demotivate if our vision is one of failure or catastrophe, or our self-image, for example, is one of, well, I can't handle that situation. So there's a huge amount of power up here in the realm of fire, for both that can both serve us profoundly in life or undermine us deeply, and it's true in all of these areas, incidentally. You know how to think about things and analyze, at least I hope. Critically go, well, hang on a second, if that was that, then how could that possibly be that? So we can bring our critical mind, our critical thinking to bear upon things in extremely useful ways that help us to solve problems, figure out logistics of things. But again, the dark side of that is we can undermine ourselves with going around and around and around in these sort of critical thinking loops. Yeah, but that wouldn't work because of that, and then there's that, and then, and we can break things down to the point that they lose their kind of holistic qualities. So this is powerful stuff, but it has a dark side as well. With regard to engagement in the material world, and inside of this model, by the way, as I mentioned, it's our sensory experience of things which can really count. Now this is important because there's a lot, we're social creatures, we are engaged with the world out there. At least this is one of the things that I believe to be true. And if you're looking at this as a self-development model, by the way, because this has huge implications, a lot of models of spirituality ignore this. They're trying to escape the material world, escape engagement, and somehow, disconnect from it as if it's something inferior and not worth being in. But without getting too philosophical about this, everything is, in a sense, if you take that non-dual perspective, there's only one thing happening, the totality of everything, the eternal, the infinite. We're all part of that. So is the material world. It is a part of that. It is a facet of that, and not to be sort of disengaged from. So I think it's important that we look at how we engage with this, particularly if we want to have rewarding relationships with other human beings. We want to engage with this in ways which lift our hearts and inspire us as well, because there can be feedback loops between these things. So how we engage with the world, well, this also dictates what we get in life, our basic engagement with the world. So this is the realm of pragmatic things, but it can also hook us, because this is the realm of addictions and attachments to material things and this kind of thing. So there's a dark side to this as well. Emotion, obviously, there is the upside of emotion. Emotion assists us with deep connection with other human beings. Emotions of happiness, emotions of joy are wonderful things to experience. But emotion can have its shadow side, its dark side as well, with fear, with sadness, with depression, these sorts of things we might see as the shadow side. That doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. They can be part of the human experience. It's how we meet them that counts. So how this relates to hypnosis, it relates hugely to how we engage with the world and how we do life. This is a model I refer to a lot, by the way, in my everyday life. I look at my experience in any given moment and I think, where am I? Where is my attention? If I'm feeling stuck in life, I can often guarantee I'm caught in some kind of wrangling between the emotional and the critical, and it's usually about something in the material world, and what's missing is inspiration, vision, and connection. So one of the things that I often do in terms of my own self-coaching is, if I'm feeling stuck, if I'm feeling like there isn't that energy there, the place I'm going to go is I'm going to go right. I'm not connecting to inspiration, I'm not connecting to imagination, I'm not connecting to vision. And there's a reason for this, that I think we often disconnect from this, and it relates to hypnosis and doing hypnosis well too. So here's what I'm going to offer you here. We live in a culture, if you live in the Western world, we live in a culture that really kind of drives a wedge in across here. So we live in a culture that values the material. If we live in a really consumer society, so everything is about getting this and getting that, and we're implicitly told that these things mean things about us having these things and all of this. So there's a real focus on the material world, and there's also a focus on work, which is about engaging with the material world and all of this kind of thing. We earn a living. This is all stuff down here. So our culture biases us to engage heavily with this and via this, okay? We are supposed to be reasonable, we're supposed to be rational. Competence in the world is often associated with an ability to be really, to have your feet on the ground and really be able to think things through in a reasoned, rational way. What is often dismissed is not dismissed entirely, but is emotion. Particularly, I'm from the UK, I'm English. There's the whole cultural thing of what's called the stiff upper lip, emotionally being sort of very stoic, not in the classical philosophical use of the term, but in the kind of modern use of the term, being very stoic, keeping your emotions in check, just carry on, keep your head down, grind through. This is all this area at the expense of the emotions. Switch off the emotion. Emotional stuff, don't be so emotional, don't cry, all of this kind of thing. And even if you're feeling happy and joyful, that's fine, but you know, as long as it doesn't take over from the serious stuff of the material world and logic and analysis. Up here, inspiration, imagination, vision. This is often discouraged at schools. We're taught not to daydream, you know, don't look out there, you won't find the answer out there. There's a discouragement from engaging in the imagination. The imagination is looked down upon as being like, oh, that's just your imagination, or you know, they let their imagination carry them away or whatever. And there's not a lot of value placed culturally on this. Ironically, cultural heroes, modern cultural heroes, particularly in the world of that I move in, a lot of people go, oh, Richard Branson, wonderful guy, Elon Musk, wonderful guy, Steve Jobs, wonderful guy. They're all visionaries. They're all actually rebels and visionaries. They're the ones who didn't buy the line of, okay, well, let's be sensible and serious about this. They didn't buy the don't daydream. They didn't buy into that, so they kept doing it. They kept in touch with this thing that our society, our culture can often disconnect us from. So the practical upshot is we have a lot of subtle influence to stay on this side of the line in life. Stay on the side of the logical analysis, critical faculty, and an engagement with the material world. Okay, there's a lot of emphasis on this. So you can do some of this in your free time, but you know, the whole realm of earning a living is over here. And so we're encouraged to spend our time on this side of the line. But here's the thing. So, hypnosis. Hypnosis happens over here. It's on this side of the line. This and this. This is the realm of hypnosis. This is why Dave Ellman's saying we want to bypass the critical faculty. You know, and often what do we do when we're doing hypnosis, classical hypnosis? They say, close your eyes. Why close your eyes? Why close your eyes? Because when somebody closes their eyes, they disconnect from their regular anchors to the material world. They disconnect simply by closing their eyes. You know, so close your eyes and you can just let your thoughts and thinking drift away. We want to get rid of all of this and we want to connect people into this side of the equation. Now, if you look at a lot of classic hypnosis suggestions, they are invitations to imagine things, to connect with inner vision. You look at processes like from NLP, the new behavior generator, I like to call it the new possibilities simulator. You look at revivifying resource experiences for people. We're all working with this imagination and vision, and we're also connecting into the emotion, what feels good. You know, if I do a classic trance induction, and this is this is from Bandler, really. I learned this from Bandler. Is close your eyes and feel good, going into this side. Freddie Jacquin has a nice piece when he does hypnotic phenomena of connecting people to strong emotional experiences in order to get to the hypnotic phenomena to take. So it's again tilting people over here. Now, occasionally I meet hypnotists who don't get this distinction, and they're trying to do hypnosis from this logical place. They're using a lot of logical, analytical words. They're not using language which is dripping with poetry and vision and evocation. I think of hypnosis as about evoking experiences from people. They have emotional qualities and they have vision-based qualities. This is where we want to take people. All the time that people are too connected over here. Of course you can pace this stuff. A lot of pacing and leading happens over here. You know, you can hear the sounds around you and feel the sensation of your body rested in the chair as your mind notices what it notices, and you can just allow that to drift away now, because there are ways beyond all of this that you can feel good. You know what it's like when you just feel good for no reason at all. And your mind, your inner mind knows how to feel good like this. And we start to take people across onto this side of the line. And this is where it all happens. Now, this is not a trivial thing. This is not a trivial thing when it comes to change work. Because much of the time, emotion can be a big aspect in change work. But much of the time, people are trying to banish the emotion, because the emotion is a problem. It's getting in the way of what they want to do in the world and how they think they should be. and they're trying to fix their problem by applying some sort of logical problem-solving thinking to it. Or maybe they're trying to just directly change something out here in the world or in their experience of the world. They're trying to solve the problem at these levels. If there's an emotional aspect to it, the way that most people will usually try to deal with that is by resisting the emotion, by pushing the emotion away, or sometimes just trying to willfully force a different emotion on top. What is almost always being disconnected from is vision, and emotion isn't being worked with. It's being attempted to be overridden rather than being worked with. So in doing hypnotic change work, you are starting to work with these places that the person has not been working with. This is why you have fantastic leverage. It's why, you know, I sometimes disconnect myself from the power of simple things in hypnosis. Stuff like a new behavior generator, you know, and a lot of the stuff with clean language that I use as well is really helping people to connect and develop their vision through imagination. Also working with emotional qualities as well. But I forget the power of this myself. I forget that if somebody's been crunching around a loop here, just a simple process of taking them into the vision space and having them spend some time in the vision space, seeing some of what could be possible. Some of what could be possible. So this is what it's all about. And we want to watch this, and you can see when you're working with somebody, you start paying attention, you can see what side of the line are they on right now. Are we trying to do this work from this side? Are they there? You can see a sort of frown on their face where they go, well, I don't know if this is really happening. I don't know if this hand is really sticking. And they're applying a lot of this logical mind analysis, critical faculty to it. We can see that. Now, here's the thing that we can start to do. We can start to make explicit invitations for people to cross this line. We can acknowledge what they're doing here. We can start coaching them across the line. So something that I will often do if I'm doing a piece of hypnotic phenomena and stuff, or something like this is where this often comes out. If you're engaging people with deeply personal material, it's easier to get people into the emotion side and then into the vision side. But if you're doing something like a simple piece of hypnotic phenomena, hand stick, foot stick, name amnesia, something like this, it's less personally meaningful to them, so they tend to find it easier to stay in the logical mind and the critical mind. The less personally meaningful an experience is to somebody, the more they will find it easy to stay in this realm. The more personally meaningful it is to them, the easier it is for them to engage with this. That's a tip that I'll give you here. So if I'm doing this kind of thing, number one, I want to make it personally meaningful. If I'm going to do a hand stick with somebody, I say, you know, if there was something that you could get from this that goes completely beyond any kind of small experience of hypnosis, but there's something you could get, something that if you were to be able to make a shift around would make a huge difference to you. And I keep it simple. If somebody says, well, I'd like to have, you know, more confidence in my work, in my professional work, they might say something like that. I say, okay, if we could give you more confidence, and you may already have a sense of what that would be like, but if we could give you more of that inside of this experience now that you could take with you, would that be a useful thing? Yes, it would. So I'm making it more personally meaningful, inviting people onto this side. I'm also going to be looking for where their kind of critical faculty is coming in. And I might be overt about it and say, okay, so you can think about this and analyze this, and that will perfectly keep you from it. So just make a decision now. Are you willing to have this experience? Yes. Then put all of the thoughts about this aside and be willing to go into it. Just imagine along with everything that I say, everything that I suggest. Allow yourself to feel the feelings and go fully into the experience. Just letting go fully into the experience and creating it with your mind. So I'm coaching the person to cross this line. You know, I may, if a hand is not quite sticking and I say, so what's happening for you now? And they're going, well, you know, I'm not sure. And I'm saying, okay, I notice these thoughts that you're having about this. And as you continue to look at that hand, just allow those thoughts to flow into that hand. Allow all of the thoughts to flow into that hand, into the experience of that hand sticking fully, flowing those thoughts in. So I make these thoughts, I turn them into an imagination-based entity and flow them into the experience to assist with the hand stick. So I'm just giving you a few examples here, but if you start looking at this and thinking, okay, so where is the person operating mostly at the moment? Are they connected to the material world, to the world of their everyday representations of what's going on around them, and to their logical thinking mind? Or are they connected into their feelings and their emotions and into their imagination and their vision and their inspiration? Because this is what we want to do. And I think Elman was right on the money when he was talking about bypassing the critical faculty. And that is what we want to do. We do want to bypass the critical faculty. But beyond that, it's not just like bypass it and go over here or bypass it and go over there. We want to get over here. It's good to know not just where we don't want to be, but where we do want to be. Okay, so there's 4 elements as it relates to hypnosis. And if you're already switched on to this kind of thing, you will possibly be beginning to see the possibilities of this in life, because it's so much more than just hypnosis. Hypnosis and life, by the way, they're not separate things. They're not separate things. When we're doing hypnosis, we're working with fundamental properties of being human that are at play in our lives all the time. So there's a lot to be learned from hypnosis about life, and a lot to be learned from life about hypnosis. Okay, thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please do click the like button around it somewhere. If you have any questions around anything that I've shared within this, please do make use of the comments section. Take care.